So the directions say to use the commutative property to rewrite the expression. Now they don't want us to solve the problem, they just want us to rewrite the expression. So the word commutative means you can change the order around. So -1 plus 10 becomes 10 plus -1. And that's what you're going to put here in your answer. Now, heads up, you might, because sometimes this plus sign and the negative sign, they start getting kind of mushy. So you might put plus and then in parentheses -1. So either one of these should be sufficient for your answer. And again, use the commutative property. So you've got -5 times 8. That becomes 8 times -5. Now if you want, you could put 8 times -5 like that. Or you can put 8 times -5. All three of these options would work. And again, don't simplify, just put in one of these answers in this little box. More commutative properties. Swap the order is basically what that means. So A times 5 becomes 5 times A. But you could also write 5A if you wish, or you could write 5 parentheses A. Any of those would work. Finally, we have something new. We have the associative property. Now, the associative property tells you how people are grouped. So I want you to imagine you got 3 kids, you got 2 boys and a girl. All right. Now, the associative property means, well, if it's like an elementary school, you have the boys hanging out and excluding the girl. And then, or you might have same 3 kids, but now suddenly the boy is going to associate with the girl, and then they're excluding this kid. So the associative property basically means who is being grouped with who. So when you have 2 plus 3 in parentheses, the quantity, so we're going to say the quantity 2 plus 3 plus 1, that can become, we're going to rearrange how those 3 numbers are being grouped, and we're going to, instead of having the 2 and the 3 being grouped, we're going to rearrange it so that the 3 and the 1 is being grouped. The associative property generally means the numbers themselves stay in the exact same order, and it's just the brackets that are the parentheses that are moving around. We're changing which 2 numbers are being associated. We've got another associative property question. So here, use the associative property. Now remember, associative property means how the numbers are grouped is changed. So right now you see that the 9 and the 2 are being associated. They're being grouped. So it's 9 times the, it's 8 times the quantity, 9 times 2. But we're going to change that because we're being asked to use the associative property. So that means it's going to become 8 times 9 times 2. And remember, the numbers themselves stay in the same order. It's really the parentheses that move. We're changing how the numbers are being grouped. So if we wanted to say this number or this problem properly, we would say the quantity 8 times 9 times 2. And that is your answer. So that's what you're going to put in the box. Don't simplify. Now use the distributive property to rewrite the expression and then simplify the expression. So I'm not sure what we're supposed to put right here, if we're supposed to just put the answer. But anyway, so the distributive property means, so you remember that this number, 8, this means 8 times the quantity 4 plus 9. So this means if you were going to solve this problem, you would probably add first and then multiply by 8. But the distributive property means we're going to take that 8 and first we're going to multiply by 4. And then we're going to take that 8 and multiply by 9. So instead of just adding first, adding them together, and then multiplying by 8, we're going to multiply by 8 in pieces. First we're going to do 8 times 4, then we're going to do 8 times 9, and then we're going to add those two together. So 8 times 4 is 32, plus 8 times 9 is 72. And now we can add those two together, we get 104. So I believe they want us to put the 104 in our box right there. But the idea is the distributive property looks like this. Now, why does that work? Well, it works because if we took that 8 times 4 plus 9, now if I changed that, if I changed it to 8 times 13, well, what does 8 times 13 look like? Well, you could think of 8 times 13 as a rectangle with a height of 8 and a base of 13, right? Or length, and I never remember, length and width, base and height, whatever. So this is 8 by 13. But if you think about the 13, you can chop that up into a 4 and a 9. So that's really saying that this distance right here is 4 and that this distance right here is 9. So we're really taking this one big rectangle and we've chopped it up into two smaller rectangles. This one is 4 wide and this one is 9 wide. And so if you really wanted to, what is the area of this rectangle right here? Well, it's 8 times 4. 8 times 4. And then what is the area of this rectangle here? Well, it's 8 times 9. And do you see? That is how we got the 8 times 4 plus 8 times 9. So the idea is 8 times 4 plus 9 is the area of this whole rectangle. 8 times 4 plus 9. And that's broken up into two rectangles, an 8 by 4 and an 8 by 9. Again, using the distributive property to rewrite that expression. So I want to refresh your memory on that rectangle thing. We're going to do that one more time. So you've got d times z minus 6. So I want you to think of this as a rectangle. And the rectangle is d high. And now here's the kind of the cool, I don't know, weird thing, I guess, is we're going to break this up into z and minus 6, all right? So instead of thinking of it as one complete rectangle, d times the quantity z minus 6, because if you really want to think about it, you can think of this entire length down here as z minus 6. But I'm going to break it up into two pieces, z and minus 6. And so, what is the area of this rectangle right here? That's d times z. And then, I'm going to put that right here, d times z. And then what is the area of this rectangle right here? It's going to be d times negative 6. It's going to be d times negative 6. All right. Now, this d times negative 6 can be rewritten as negative 6d, because that's the commutative property. So this area is dz, this area is minus 6d, and that is your distributive property. Now I want you to look at this. D times z is this piece right here. And then this is d times minus 6. And that's this piece right here, minus 6d. And that is your answer. Now you don't need the dot. If you wanted to, you could just put dz minus 6d, and that's your answer. Again, using the distributive property, so you've got 4 times a plus b. And I want you to think of it as kind of like 4 is being multiplied by the a, and 4 is being multiplied by the positive b. And so what is that going to be? Well, what's the 4 times a? Well, that's 4a. And then 4 times b, positive b, is positive 4b. And so your answer is 4a plus 4b. You don't need to color code it. Now, if you wanted to see that in like a rectangle, so 4 times a plus b looks like this. You've got, it's 4 high, and it's a plus b wide. But we're going to break that up. Boom, right here. We're going to break that up into a plus b. And so if I wanted to know the area of this piece right here, this rectangle, that's 4a. And if I wanted to find the area of this rectangle, that's 4b. And so the total area of the rectangle is 4a plus 4b. And again, use the distributive property. Now I'm going to go just straight algebra on you because we've done a bunch of these examples, right? Now, so this means negative 9 times b, and then it means negative 9 times negative m. I want you to think of that. I know it says minus m, but I want you to think of it as a negative m. And so negative 9 times b, that gives you negative 9b. And then negative 9 times negative m gives you a positive 9m. Because remember, when you multiply two negatives, you get a positive number. So like negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. So you have a negative 9 and a negative m, so we know the answer has to be positive, so there's our positive, and 9 times m is m, and so there's your answer right there. And the last one, use the distributive property to insert parentheses. So basically, this is kind of going in reverse. So I'm going to write it over here, 9b minus 2b. Now I want you to think of this as 2 times b and 9 times b. So what do these two terms have in common? Well, they each have a b in common. All right, so working backwards, our b is going to be on the outside, and 9 minus 2 is going to be on the inside. And if we want to check it to make sure we're right, we're going to do the distributive property. So b times 9 and b times negative 2. b times 9 is 9b. b times negative 2 is negative 2b. And there's our answer. So what you're going to put in that box is the b times the quantity, 9 minus 2.